Picture, if you will, a world painted in shades of ochre, gold, burnt sienna. This is ancient Arabia, a vast, sprawling peninsula dominated by deserts that seem to stretch on into eternity. We often think of deserts as empty, lifeless places, but that's not the whole story, not at all. The Arabian landscape was a character in its own right, shaping every aspect of life. It was a place of dramatic contrasts, scorching Rub al-Khali and rugged Hejaz highlands. Survival here was a daily, heroic struggle. The people who called this demanding land home were as resilient and resourceful as the landscape itself, the Bedouin. Their lives were a constant dance with the seasons, migrations in search of water and grazing. Their survival depended on camels, sheep, and goats. These weren't aimless wanderings, they followed ancient routes passed down through generations. They knew where to find a hidden well, and which stars to follow on a moonless night. This nomadic lifestyle created a unique kind of person, self-reliant, fiercely independent, deeply connected to kin. The tribe was everything: family, nation, and safety net. In a land with no central government, no police force, your tribe was your only protection. Loyalty wasn't just a virtue, it was the key to survival. Alone you were vulnerable. As part of a tribe you were powerful. This profound sense of belonging would shape Arabian identity for centuries. Bayt al-Sha'ar, the house of hair, portable homes woven from goat and camel hair. They could pack and be on the move in hours, ready for the next leg of the journey. Food centered on livestock, camel milk, dates, the bread of the desert. Hospitality was sacred. A traveler was fed and sheltered for 3 days. Power wasn't held by kings, it was held by the tribe. Society was organized along genealogical lines. You belonged to a family, a clan, and a larger tribe. Your identity was your lineage. When you met someone, the first question was often, "From which tribe are you?" Tribes were led by a sheikh, chosen by elders for wisdom, bravery, and judgment. His authority depended on consent. Leadership required proven courage. A leader was also a warrior. Decisions were collective. The sheikh could not command without respect. Tribes formed complex webs of alliances and rivalries, constantly interacting and negotiating. Pacts were sealed with solemn oaths, often sworn before tribal gods at a shrine. Breaking an alliance brought great dishonor and could have devastating consequences. Scarcity of water and pasture made conflict inevitable. Competition for resources was constant. A stolen camel, an insult, or a land dispute could spark a feud. Conflicts often took the form of raids, gazu, hit-and-run strikes to seize livestock and goods. Raids demonstrated strength and acquired wealth. Victorious fighters returned with spoils. But raids could escalate. Retaliation could spiral into generational blood feuds. Without prisons or police, honor, reputation, and the fear of shame enforced order. History and news were preserved in poetry and in the famous Ayyam al-Arab, the Days of the Arabs. These poems told tales of heroism, tragedy, and the cyclical nature of revenge. Feuds defined martial life, but memory and verse kept social values alive. As tribes fought and traded, another world of gods and sanctuaries flourished across Arabia. Pre-Islamic Arabia was religiously diverse, overwhelmingly polytheistic with countless local gods. Gods were represented by idols, sacred stones, or trees that served as focal points for worship. Each tribe often had a patron deity, a protector in battle or provider in trade. There was Hubal in Mecca, a major idol in the Kaaba, and regional goddesses like Al-Lat, Manat, and Al-Uzza. Al-Uzza was associated with power, sometimes linked to the planet Venus. People made pilgrimages to sanctuaries, leaving offerings to seek favor. The world also teemed with spirits, jinn, thought to inhabit lonely places and caves. Jinn could be helpful, mischievous, or dangerous. People took care not to offend them. Soothsayers and diviners, kahin, interpreted dreams and cast arrows to find answers. Sacred spaces called harams were sanctuaries where violence was forbidden, essential hubs for commerce and mediation. Mecca's Kaaba was the most famous sanctuary, a neutral ground where tribes met and commerce flourished. Tribes who were enemies could trade and resolve disputes safely within a haram. Worship involved offerings, ritual objects, sacred stones, and local rites. These sanctuaries supported markets, which in turn made them vital economic and social hubs. By providing neutral ground, harams helped stabilize trade and pave the way for early urban centers. Religion in Arabia was not monolithic. It was a mosaic of gods, spirits, and sanctuaries that shaped daily life. Meanwhile, across the peninsula, trade arteries were knitting Arabia into the wider world. Sacred and profane, local and international, religion and commerce coexisted and interacted. To the south, the land produced resins that would bring Arabia to the world's markets. For centuries, Arabia produced two valuable commodities, frankincense and myrrh, prized across the ancient world. They were used in temples, perfumes, and medicines in Rome, Persia, Egypt, and beyond. Demand created the incense roads, arteries across Arabia linking oases, ports, and empires. Caravans paid tolls and hired tribal protection. Tribes controlling key oases became wealthy gatekeepers. This trade created a prosperous merchant class and drove urban growth. Goods carried ideas. Traders met Christians, Jews, Persians, and Byzantines in marketplaces. In the 6th century, Mecca rose as a hub, not because of water, but because it sat at crossroads of trade and pilgrimage. The Quraysh became exceptional merchants and skilled diplomats organizing ilaf, commercial treaties with tribes. In return for protection, caravans shared profits. Trade shifted from seasonal risk to year-round commerce. Mecca's markets sold leather from Yemen, textiles from Syria, spices from India, and goods from the Mediterranean. At the heart stood the Kaaba, home to 360 idols, and the focus of an annual pilgrimage that enforced a sacred truce. The Quraysh were custodians, merchants, bankers, brokers, and caretakers of the shrine. Faith and finance combined, wealth created an elite merchant class, and stark divides between rich and poor. Traditional tribal solidarity eroded under rising inequality and changing values. The social fabric strained. Mecca thrived but simmered with unrest. Tribes that controlled routes were gatekeepers. Their power grew with commerce. Trade also spread languages, laws, armies, and religions. Cities displayed complex legal and military systems. This mixture of wealth, faith, and cultural exchange made Arabia ripe for change. Amidst this, poetry kept a shared voice, a cultural glue that would prove decisive. In an oral culture, poetry reigned. The sha'ir was historian, propagandist, and moral conscience. A verse could praise, mourn, or humiliate. A satirical line could wound as a sword. The qasida often began with a lament at an abandoned campsite, moved through the journey, then praised a patron. Public poetry contests like ukaz turned poets into celebrities and forged a shared high Arabic. The best odes, the mu'allaqat, were said to be hung on the Kaaba, cultural pinnacles. Poetry created a common identity. A tribesman from the south could understand one from the north. As the 6th century closed, interactions with Christians and Jews planted seeds. The idea of a single transcendent God began to spread. For some Arabs, the worship of many idols felt unsatisfying. Stories of Abraham, Moses, and Jesus circulated in marketplaces. A loose group of seekers, the Hunafa, sought a purer monotheism without converting to Judaism or Christianity. Growing inequality, erosion of tribal values, and endless feuds created a sense of crisis. Society seemed to have lost its moral compass. Young people and seekers looked outward, yearning for meaning beyond old rituals. A spiritual restlessness spread alongside social and economic tensions. Politically, Arabia sat between two exhausted giants, Byzantium and the Sasanian Persian Empire. Their long wars had stretched imperial systems thin. A power vacuum opened. For the first time, Arabs could shape their own destiny from within the peninsula. Economic dynamism, a shared cultural language, pilgrims and poets, and deep divisions made Arabia a tinderbox. Unknowingly, a collection of tribes through trade, poetry, and conflict laid the groundwork for a new faith and an empire. The stage was set, a world poised on the edge of a new era. Credits and further reading. Invite viewers to subscribe for Part 2.